A growing controversy for Democrats today after Hillary Clinton's big win in New York. Despite Secretary Clinton racking up big numbers and looking more and more like she will be the nominee, Senator Bernie Sanders says he's staying in this race and plans to keep the heat on Mrs. Clinton, and that could be a problem. Political analysts are now asking if candidate Clinton is suffering permanent damage from attacks like these. Watch.
In the last filing report, our major super PAC listed $25 million in special interest funding, including $15 million from Wall Street. Secretary Clinton has given speeches behind closed doors to Wall Street firms for $225,000 a speech. Must be an earth-shattering speech. Must be a speech written in Shakespearean prose.
Joining me now, Democratic National Committee Chair and Florida Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Great to see you. So,
thanks.
You got to give him points on that one, for Shakespearean prose, although who would pay $225,000 to listen to that? The question is legitimate, though, about whether he is hurting her. In the same way many people think the ongoing Republican race may be hurting the ultimate nominee, is this prolonged race on your side hurting her if she becomes the nominee?
Well, I don't think so. And I mean, really, you can point to the evidence that we have in New York last night when exit polls showed that 7 in 10 New York voters coming out of the polling place were energized and enthusiastic about our candidates, and less than 40% of Republicans said that. And you know, you've got Republican senators and other elected officials and candidates deciding not to even attend and announcing that they won't attend the Republican National Convention. So, I mean, at this point in 2008, our primary was much more divisive than this one has been. And while I'm very proud of both of our candidates for really focusing on substantive issues in our debates and throughout this campaign, I do continue to caution them to not really get intense and divisive so that it harms our ability to come back together.
And what do you think, though, even though you're right about the numbers of the Democrats who say, I'm okay with either one, I prefer this one, but I'll go, I'll go. Her negatives are going up. I mean, they always go up in these contests, but her negatives are pretty high, Chairwoman. Her image is at record lows or near record lows among many major demographic groups. Men, she's -40. Women, she's -9. Whites, she's -39. White women, -25. White men, she's at -72. These are record numbers, especially compared to Barack Obama 4 and 8 years ago.
Well, I mean, Megan, bottom line, you do the head-to-head matchup, and either one of our candidates beats any of the Republican candidates. And when you are looking at energy and enthusiasm, that's really what is helping voters decide whether they're going to go out and be motivated enough to vote for a candidate, work for a candidate, organize, knock on doors, make phone calls. And so those are the kinds of stats that I want to see when it comes to the momentum that either one of our candidates is going to have going into a general election, going into the convention, and ultimately going head-to-head with the Republican nominee. And you know, the Republicans are still at civil war. You know, Donald Trump, who's almost for sure going to be their nominee, has been at the throat of Reince Priebus and the rest of the RNC. So they're not talking about substantive issues. They're mired in chaos. And so that contrast is going to bode well for us when it comes to a general election, because we're getting ready to make sure we can be prepared for the general election, and they're still fighting.
Last question. Hillary got in some trouble recently, and she did a skit with Mayor Bill de Blasio here in New York where he made a reference to CP, and that is understood as a racial slur, colored people. It should be said, is married to a person of color and has 2 children who are also. But they played it off like they meant cautious politician. And then she came under fire for participating in this, even from some of her advocates. Did she make a mistake?
You know, I've been asked over and over to comment on different aspects or things that each of our candidates have said. I just think it's not appropriate for me to weigh in on things like that. That's better asked of the candidates themselves and the people that are specifically advocating on behalf of those candidates. I'm focused on the general election.
That is officially the 10-foot pole, and our cue to wrap it. Great to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks. Thanks, Megan.